Good evening. Global pop superstar Katy Perry is tonight at the centre of a police investigation over bombshell claims of sexual abuse inside a Melbourne nightclub.
There are moments in celebrity culture where the floor just disappears, where someone who seemed completely untouchable suddenly finds themselves standing at the edge of something they cannot charm or spin their way out of. Katy Perry has spent the better part of 2 decades being one of the most recognized women on the planet. Chart-topping records, sold-out arena tours, a brand built on color, spectacle, and an almost supernatural ability to bounce back from controversy. But what is unfolding right now is not a PR problem. It is not a beef between celebrities. It is not a social media storm that will blow over in a week. What is happening right now involves a police unit in Australia, a formal criminal investigation, a pattern of accusations stretching back years, and a silence from Katy Perry's camp that is becoming harder and harder to explain away. The situation is serious, and for the first time in her career, Katy Perry does not appear to have a clean exit. To understand how we arrived here, you have to go back to the beginning. Not the beginning of Katy Perry's career, but the beginning of this specific crisis. Because it did not start in a courtroom. It did not start with a journalist investigation or a leaked document. It started with a nightclub in Melbourne, Australia, in August of the year 2010. A nightclub called Spice Market. Katy Perry was in Australia at the time promoting her music. She was riding one of the biggest waves of her career. Her album was about to drop. Her profile was enormous. She had attended a school formal earlier that evening at the Grand Hyatt Hotel, which ended up on entertainment news around the world because she crashed the event and danced with teenagers who had no idea she was going to walk through the door. After the formal, the night moved next door. Into the basement. Into Spice Market. And that is where, according to Ruby Rose, something happened that Rose carried in silence for nearly 16 years. Ruby Rose is an Australian actress and model who was in the early stages of her own career at that point. She was young. She was in the same orbit as Perry that night. And according to her account, what happened inside that venue was not a funny story or a wild celebrity night out. It was, in her words, a sexual assault. She has described the specific details of what she claims occurred. She says she was lying down when Perry approached her. She says what Perry allegedly did was non-consensual and deeply violating. She says she was so disturbed that she became physically sick. And she says she said nothing publicly for almost 2 decades because the power dynamic between them made silence feel like the only safe option. She has stated that Perry later helped her obtain a United States visa, a piece of assistance that Rose says made her feel indebted and trapped in that silence for years. Now, the critical question that everyone is asking is this. If this happened in 2010, why is it only coming to light now in 2026? That is the question that skeptics are leading with. And it is a fair question. But it is also one that researchers and trauma specialists have studied extensively. The data on delayed disclosure of sexual misconduct is overwhelming. Survivors frequently wait years, sometimes decades, before speaking publicly about what happened to them. The reasons vary, but they consistently include fear of not being believed, professional consequences, emotional unreadiness, and power imbalances. When the person being accused has significantly more influence, wealth, and industry connections than the person making the accusation, the silence often lasts even longer. Ruby Rose has offered her own explanation for why she stayed quiet and why she chose to frame the incident as a humorous drinking story in a column she wrote in 2011. She says she did not know how to process what had happened. She says writing it as a funny anecdote was a coping mechanism. She says she is now 40 years old and has reached a point in her life where she could no longer keep carrying it the way she had been. The 2011 column is genuinely complicated for her case. In it, she described the same night at Spice Market, but the framing was entirely different. She wrote about drinking too much, breaking her sobriety, and ending the night by vomiting on Katy Perry's foot. She described it as an embarrassing and funny memory. She did not describe any misconduct. She did not describe distress. She did not describe anything that would suggest trauma. Katy Perry's legal team will absolutely use that column if this situation escalates further into the courts. They will argue that the column represents the original, truthful account, and that the current narrative is something entirely different constructed years later. That is a powerful argument in any legal setting. However, it is not, by itself, proof that the current account is fabricated. Trauma survivors have a long documented history of minimizing or reframing their experiences publicly while privately carrying a very different version of events. Both things can coexist. A person can laugh about something in public for years while internally recognizing it as something that caused real damage. That tension does not resolve the question of what actually happened. But it does explain how two seemingly contradictory accounts from the same person can exist simultaneously. What transformed this from an internet argument into a genuine legal matter was Ruby Rose's decision to walk into a Melbourne police station and file a formal report. She did not just post on social media and disappear. She went through official channels. She submitted a formal statement. And within days, the Melbourne Sexual Offences and Child Abuse Investigation Team, known as SOSIT, confirmed publicly that they had opened an investigation into a historical sexual misconduct incident in Melbourne in the year 2010. At a licensed venue in the Central Business District. The statement did not name Katy Perry. It did not name Ruby Rose. It did not need to. The timing made the connection obvious to anyone paying attention. A Victoria Police spokesperson confirmed the investigation was real and that the unit handling it was SOSIT. That confirmation is not a small thing. Police agencies do not typically confirm active investigations unless they have already assessed the complaint as credible enough to warrant formal attention. SOSIT itself deserves a closer look, because a lot of people are underestimating what it means that this particular unit is involved. This is not a general crimes division with a sexual misconduct file sitting in a cabinet somewhere. SOSIT was specifically designed to handle cases exactly like this one. It has dozens of locations across the state of Victoria. It employs hundreds of specially trained detectives. Every detective assigned to this unit goes through a dedicated training program in sexual offense investigations. They work alongside trauma counselors. They use specialized interview techniques designed to be sensitive to the needs of survivors while also capturing legally usable evidence. This is a serious, professional, purpose-built investigative structure. And it operates under a legal framework that makes it uniquely powerful in cases like this one. Victoria, Australia, has no statute of limitations on sexual offenses. That means an incident from 2010 can be investigated, charged, and prosecuted in 2026, or in 2036, or in 2046. The passage of time does not close the door. If the evidence exists and holds up under scrutiny, charges can be filed regardless of how many years have passed. That is the legal environment this investigation is operating within. Now let us talk about Katy Perry's response, because it tells a story all by itself. Her official representative issued a statement calling the allegations categorically false, dangerous, and reckless lies. The statement also referenced Ruby Rose's history of making public allegations against various individuals and noted those claims had been denied by the people named. If you read that statement quickly, it sounds like a standard celebrity denial. If you read it carefully, it reads like something a legal team drafted with one eye on a courtroom. Every word in that statement is doing precise work. The word categorically is designed to shut down any partial truth argument. The word reckless is designed to establish the mental state of the accuser. The word dangerous is designed to frame the accusation as harmful to Perry in a legally meaningful way. And the reference to Rose's history of public allegations is designed to establish a character pattern that could be used to undermine her credibility in future proceedings. This is not casual PR language. This is litigation language. This reads like the opening paragraph of a defamation lawsuit being constructed in real time. Australia is actually a favorable legal environment for celebrities considering defamation action. The country's defamation laws differ significantly from those in the United States. In America, a public figure suing for defamation has to prove the person who made the statement acted with actual malice, meaning they knew the statement was false or acted with reckless disregard for whether it was true. That is an extremely high legal bar, and it is why American celebrities almost never win defamation suits. In Australia, the burden is essentially reversed. The person who made the statement has to prove it was true. If they cannot meet that burden, they lose. This has made Australia a preferred venue for high-profile defamation cases. Multiple major figures have pursued legal action there precisely because of this advantage. If Katy Perry's team is seriously considering this route, that is where they would file. And the language of the existing statement suggests they are at least thinking very carefully about that option. But here is the complication. Filing a defamation lawsuit would trigger a discovery process. That process would give Ruby Rose's legal team the right to request documents, communications, and records from Katy Perry's side. It would mean Perry's own witnesses could be deposed. It would mean her private correspondence and internal communications could potentially become part of the legal record. For an innocent person with nothing to hide, that process holds no fear. For anyone with any concern about what that process might surface, it is a significant deterrent. The fact that no lawsuit has been filed as of this point, despite the aggressive language of the denial, is something worth noticing. Strong language and actual legal action are not the same thing. The statement creates the impression of momentum toward litigation. The absence of a filed case suggests the calculation may be more complicated than the statement implies. Meanwhile, the investigation is moving forward with or without a lawsuit. Ruby Rose has stated publicly that she has completed all her formal statements with police and that she has been asked by investigators not to make further public comments about the individuals involved or the details of the case. She says that instruction is actually a relief. That detail is significant. Police typically make that request to a witness or complainant when they want to preserve the integrity of the investigation, prevent witnesses from coordinating stories, and protect the evidentiary value of statements already taken. It suggests the investigation has moved beyond the initial intake stage and into something more structured. Ruby Rose going quiet on this topic is not a sign that the case is falling apart. It may be the opposite. The evidence landscape for a case this old is genuinely difficult. Spice Market, the nightclub at the center of this story, permanently closed its doors at the start of 2026, only months before the allegation became public. The ownership has dissolved. Staff records from 2010 are almost certainly gone. Surveillance footage from that era was typically retained for about 30 days before being overwritten. The footage from that night in August of 2010 has not existed for well over 15 years. The building itself has been repurposed. The physical evidence that a modern investigator might hope to access in a recent case simply does not exist here. What remains is witness testimony, documentary evidence like photographs or personal records that the people present may have kept, and the 2011 column which cuts in both directions depending on how it is interpreted. Ruby Rose has claimed she possesses photographs from that night. She has not released them publicly, and given that she is now cooperating with an active police investigation, it would make sense that she has either surrendered them to detectives or been asked to hold them until the investigation determines how they should be used. Photographs from that era, particularly time-stamped or context-rich images showing the people present and the setting they were in, could serve as corroborating evidence for witness accounts even if they do not capture the alleged incident itself. Other witnesses who were present that evening have been identified in various accounts. The people in that VIP area. The security staff who organized a car to take Perry and Rose away from the venue. The driver. The staff at other locations they visited afterward. Any one of those people could be contacted by Saucet detectives and asked about what they observed that night. Memory is imperfect after 16 years. But multiple independent accounts aligning on specific details can still carry significant weight in an investigation and in a courtroom. The broader pattern of accusations surrounding Katy Perry is something that the current moment has pulled back into public view. Over the years, there have been multiple separate individuals who have described uncomfortable or inappropriate encounters with her. A male model who described being publicly humiliated in a sexual way at a private event. A television personality from Eastern Europe who described unwanted physical contact at a private gathering. A young man who appeared on a television singing competition and later told reporters he was uncomfortable with how a moment on that stage unfolded. An actress who appeared on a late-night talk show and described an encounter with Perry that she characterized as aggressive and weird, though the segment was played for comedic effect at the time. None of these accounts resulted in formal legal action against Perry. Each of them was either denied, deflected, or simply ignored by her camp. But when you look at them collectively, the pattern that emerges shares consistent features. Public or semi-public settings. A power differential favoring Perry in each case. Physical boundary violations framed as playful or joking in nature. And an official response that either denies through representatives or says nothing at all. Each individual account can be questioned. Collectively, they form a picture that is harder to dismiss. This is the moment where the trajectory of everything starts to matter. Katy Perry is not coming into this